and some a little bit deeper insight, and if nothing else, a refresher. And if nothing else, an opportunity to pick on Peter Beaumont just a little bit, because we all love to do that.
What? Okay. Fair enough.
All right.
Can we
So
do that now? Can we do that now?
no, we're going to save that to the chat.
Certainly
Enter to the chat things, and then Rob will coordinate those when we're done here in 20 minutes. So in business, especially given our current landscape, people are looking to attract customers, to close on opportunities, and to grow, or in some cases, pivot or save their business. And there are a slew of people out there now that are in transition. And so for people that are looking or hunting for that next career opportunity, they're looking to attract employers, engage with that right opportunity so they can get back to work in a new role. The key to doing this is to get the right message to the right people at the right time. For you to stand out from your competition, people need to understand what you do and how your specific products, your services, your skills, your skill set will help them solve their problem. So what we're going to talk about today, for those of you that are stuck, or if you know of people that are stuck, or feel like they're getting lost in the crowd of that competition, the Storybrand Framework and its tools can help. Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, was written specifically to help businesses write more effective marketing messaging. And his follow-up book, if you haven't checked it out, Marketing Made Simple, shows you how to take that message and put it right into a marketing plan or into what he calls a sales funnel. And he's got a brand new one, hot off the press. Here I am schlepping books. Called Business Made Simple, which is a follow-up on his podcast, which is a sequence of 60 daily lessons that coordinate with videos on all things around business. So Donald Miller and his team are doing a phenomenal job sharing some really, really great tools. And what we're going to do today is talk about using those tools to help you answer the question, what do you do? Which is critical in helping you stand out. We just did this in the breakout session. You get asked this by prospective clients, and you get asked this whether you realize it or not by every single person that visits your website or reads your LinkedIn profile. You know, people tend to answer this a variety of ways. They'll talk about the number of years of experience they have, the specific industry they work in, the names of the companies they've worked with or even worked for, but none of those answers describe what you do in a way that will help actually engage the person that you're talking with so that they understand why they need what you do. If you think about your message, you know, I'd pick on Rob, and I'm not going to ask you to say it, but Rob, you think about you and every other Edward Jones advisor, how is what you describe different from the other advisors that you might be competing with? And for those of you that have companies, if I came into your firm or your organization and randomly surveyed 4 or 5 different people and just asked them, hey, what do you guys do here? What are the odds that they would all answer in a unified way? So to illustrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to share a couple of website examples. This is the website, the homepage of a customer that we're currently working with. And if you notice in this area that we call above the fold, which is the most important real estate on a website, it's the area that you see on the top half when you land there. Other than having the word insurance in the name of their company, this organization doesn't say anything about what they do. The photo of the building is gorgeous, but they're not taking advantage of the opportunity to tell people who've landed here that they're in the right place and to reassure them that whatever it is that this organization does with regards to insurance is something that's actually relevant and appropriate for that specific visitor. So as a rule, with your website, you have about 5 seconds to capture somebody's attention. And if it takes somebody longer than 5 seconds to understand what you can offer them, you've probably lost that sale. Here's another example of a website that uses some words, but doesn't effectively explain what they do. Turning Point Consulting is already challenged because they have the word, and some of you are consultants, have the word consulting in your name. The word consulting can be interpreted in really a variety of ways. And when they say helping customers realize their full potential, even though they do support that with integrating business and technology, without spending more than 5 seconds about learning more about what they do, I don't know how. Full potential is relatively vague, and I don't understand how that relates specifically to me. Oop, I went the wrong way. Sorry, wrong button, guys, gals. Okay, one more. Nath Companies, another customer of ours, this is their old website. They've got, while this does have messaging, note again that nowhere, especially not over the header photo, do they say anywhere in any clear manner what it is that they do. They do say what they do in the website, but it's going to take you a lot longer than 5 seconds and a lot of digging around and a lot of buttons and copy to navigate through to find that out. And they're causing me to burn a lot of mental calories and do a lot of work to find the information that I'm looking for. The problem is people don't take the time to read your website. They skim them. They skim them and they look for keywords that jump out, that tell them they're in the right place, and then they may read on. But if it's just lots of copy, it's just going to look like gray, and they're just going to skim over the top of it. Everybody wants to tell a great story with their brand, with themselves, with their personal brand. But in telling that story, a lot of people end up defaulting to listing a bunch of facts. We do this, we sell that, we've worked with these people, we've done this, but that ends up translating to a list of we, or I. And to tell a really good story is to actually realize that that story is not about you. Your story, if written right, to be effective, is actually about the person that you're talking to your customer, to a potential employer, or to your internal team. And what that story does is invites them in by describing how their lives ultimately are made better through you, through your skills, through your experience and your services. By leading with we do this, we do that, we end up in storytelling terms positioning ourselves as the customer or as the hero in the story. But to be effective in telling the story is to position our customer as the hero and to position ourselves as the guide. Positioning ourselves as the guide is a pretty huge paradigm shift for a lot of businesses. And we're really used to leading with our expertise and pounding home our skills and our authority. And while all of that information is absolutely appropriate, when you lead with your expertise, you end up positioning yourself as the hero instead of somebody who's there to help your customer get what they want. So in your messaging, instead of positioning yourselves as Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi is our goal. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is the template that I say, don't screen grab this, or if you do, this is the one to take a screen grab of, not to use. This is an elevator speech template that we used to use in our business. It started with the claim of expertise, and then who we helped, and then how we helped them. So for example, we are the leading, we're the first, we're the best, we're the experts in this market. And then we finally get around in the third line to who it is that we actually help them. And finally, what the actual benefits are of working with us. So pulling back the curtain and making fun of myself a little bit, I like to read what my business's elevator speech used to look like. So bear with me here, because this is a mouthful. Sussner Design Company specializes in revitalizing brands that have changed objectives, ceased to grow, evolved to new markets, or faded over time. As a leading design firm, we deliver creative solutions that renew identities to connect with, reconnect with, or expand audiences. Um, that's a mouthful. Not only is it not clear, not only does it really never effectively or directly say what we do and uses way too many words, more than anything, it actually positions us as the hero in the story. And it doesn't pass that test of being able to read something out loud. I could never memorize that. I could never say that at a networking event. It's just way too complicated. So using Storybrand's tool, we rewrote it to read like this. Many brands get lost in the crowd. So we create brand identities that help marketing leaders energize their brands, gain a competitive edge, and stand out from the crowd. So the key thing here is to see that instead of leading with our expertise, it leads with the problem that most of our customers face. And then it introduces how we help them, what that solution is. And then per Storybrand's template, it finishes with the aspirational success that somebody will realize if they engage with our business. So here's what Storybrand's template looks like to help you, the framework that will help you answer, what do you do? Storybrand, if you read the books, refers to this, Donald Miller refers to this as the one-liner. I think of it as more powerful than that. I like to refer to it as your brand statement, but we've also had other people that prefer to think of this as your value proposition, your elevator speech, or even your positioning. But it's really that brief, powerful, unifying statement that says what you do, and it's composed of three key pieces. First, and it doesn't have to be done in this template and in this order as you start working on this, but to make sure you're including the problem or the pain point that most of your customers face. Then introduce the solution to that problem that you've just stated. And then finally, to ramp up, to explain, to elaborate, to make sure that you touch on the success that your customer will experience after you solve their problem. And I'll show you a bunch of examples. Sometimes that success is what you know or believe that business wants, to grow, more profit, more revenue. Other times that success is emotional. It's confidence and peace of mind. And we'll break that down in a few more examples. So here's the Turning Point Consulting one-liner as it existed. And we took helping customers realize their full potential, and we rewrote it to read, most CEOs struggle to execute measurable change company-wide. So there's the problem. Our trademark methodologies, born from C-suite leadership experience, there's the solution, help you realize profitability, scalability, and clarity for higher margins and more wins. NAF companies, which is a property manager and property development firm. This is what their old website homepage that we talked about already. We rewrote their brand statement to read like this. When you partner with NAF companies, your property is in the hands of a company that cares about your success and has a history of helping property owners maximize the return on their investment. So you can see we've taken that framework and we've taken that template and we started to break out a little bit. And as you work on your own brand statement and get a little bit more comfortable with that cadence, you can start to take some of those liberties. But as long as those 3 points are weaved in, and then this is how this is applied to their updated homepage. So we've actually taken that same statement and utilized it in a variety of different ways. But right here up on top, when you partner with NAF, your property is in the hands of a company that cares about your success. So right there on top is where that one-liner lives for them. One more quick example. This is for a real estate company. Buying, selling, or remodeling your property can be overwhelming. Many of us that are homeowners or own or have sold real estate, I think, can identify with that problem. That's why we make sure you have the information, the plan, and the support that you need. So there's the solution to feel completely confident in your decision. And then put that to work right there on the top half of their website. Um, so this is the template, and I believe Rob put this in the chat too, a link to this worksheet that we put together that's based on Donald Miller's template that just gives you hopefully a helpful place to work on this for yourself, for your team, and your own personal brand. And in the lower left-hand corner, if you do download this worksheet, if you happen or are interested in buying any of the books, I actually put right in the bottom corner there which pages to reference right in Donald Miller's books. So, a problem, solution, and success, the one thing I want to dive just a little bit deeper on is the problem. In building a story brand, Donald Miller actually describes multiple types of problems. He goes into 4 levels of them, and I'm not going to go into all 4 of those today because some of those get a little bit further down the road of your writing comfort. But the 2 that I think all of us need to really be focused on when it comes to the customers or the people or the audience that we're talking to are 1, the external problem, and 2, the internal problem that our customers face. The external problem is the physical, tangible thing that's getting in the way of what our customers want. This is often thought of in terms as the physical service or product that our companies sell, like pest control, for example. The internal problem, on the other hand, is a feeling. It's an emotion that the external problem is making the customers feel, like fear. Most businesses make the mistake of describing what they do or answering that "what do you do" question in terms of helping the customer solve that external problem. But because everybody's talking about solving that external problem, that's where we all start to sound the same. And the key is to speak to the customer's internal problem, because most customers are ultimately making their purchasing decisions to buying a solution that solves that internal problem, not that external problem. So as an example, I mentioned pest control. I'd been trapping over the fall some mice in my house, and I can trap a mouse here or there, no big deal. And as long as my wife doesn't find out about it, she's not gonna get too upset and freak out. And as a homeowner, I don't know, there's certain responsibilities that I feel like I'm obligated to take care of, so I can trap some mice, no problem. Until the time that my wife preheated the oven for the dinner that we were going to make that night, and the most obnoxious, nastiest smell that you would never want to smell come out of your oven came out of our oven. And we opened up the oven. There was no mouse. There was not a mouse in the oven, but there was a mouse nest covered in mouse droppings, where a mouse had actually drug a bunch of insulation somehow. I don't know how this happens, but they drug a nest full of insulation through the back of the oven and actually built it right in the oven, and had clearly been there for a while. And the emotions that realization caused my wife and I to have had me running to the first. So we ended up signing up with Adams Pest Control, because you know why? Because it came up first in that search of our panic and our fear to solve this problem. And I signed up with a quarterly service. I don't even think I ever even asked them what it cost, because that solution was 100% emotional and had to be solved as soon as possible. Otherwise, pest control service was never really something that was on top of my mind. So for you, when you think about the service that you sell, the product that you sell, or even for the person who is in transition and looking for the job, and you're having a conversation with a potential employer, think about the emotional challenges that other person is experiencing and how you can effectively talk to them. So a couple more examples. This is a former landing page for a chronic mental health pain program. Lots of information. It does say what you do, but again, there was so much information and so many buttons here that people who landed on this page had a hard time quickly identifying that they were in the right place. So we rewrote their one liner to say, we fully recognize the impacts of pain, physical, emotional, and relational. There's the problem. We specialize in teaching you the skills to remove your pain from the spotlight. There's the solution. There's better life ahead. So that success for them is purely emotional. And then this is how that translated to the landing page for this specific program. So there's a key point of empathy in being able to express that you understand the internal problem that somebody is going through. And that's a huge step in continuing to position yourself as the guide. And a lot of people ask, based on the examples that I show, well, does this apply to me? Does this apply to my industries in manufacturing? I'm in professional services. Donald Miller would say, if you use words in your business, this framework will help you. So here's a quick example of how this is applied to a retail customer of ours. Do you struggle to find glasses you really love? At Envision, we look at you first, then your frames. Because when your eyewear fits your face and who you are, you will love how you look. So again, a whole nother example of how that works. And we've also done this from a recruiting standpoint. So for businesses who are putting out messaging to looking for new members to add to their team, we've used the exact same framework. We know you want to join a team that you can be proud to be part of. So at Mission Critical, everyone contributes and everyone gets an opportunity for professional growth. Join us and enjoy a rewarding career as an integral part of a growing company. And finally, I helped a personal friend of mine who was on the job hunt, who had tons and tons of experience in corporate real estate and property management. And in getting ready for an interview, instead of him thinking about walking in and sitting across that desk and talking about all of the properties, the years of experience, and leading with all of his authority and expertise, instead, the idea was for him in a conversational way to express something like this, for him to say to that person across the desk that, hey, as the general manager of this firm, you are probably under pressure and overwhelmed. So you should have somebody on your team you can trust to take care of all those details for you so you can focus on the things that this place needs you to be focusing on. So you can still see how that problem, solution, and success translates. This is what the overall Storybrand framework looks like. There's 7 components, and I'm not going to go into them today. But if you are interested in a deeper dive about writing your brand story for your company, for yourself, then this will take you through the various components that all go into positioning you and your brand as a guide. And if you are interested in that deeper dive, while that information is detailed in the books, Storybrand also has a really great free online tool available at mystorybrand.com, where you can work on this, capture your own information, and save it and go back to it whenever you have time. Super helpful tool. So then, what do you do once you get your messaging clarified? The goal is to think about, and I think you'd be surprised at the quantity and the number of places that you can put that to work. Think about that, not only the networking event, and to be ready to use this the next time somebody asks you what you do, but we use it in new business conversations. It's really helped us from a sales script sort of standpoint. You have to put it to work in your website, because your website is something that I keep talking about, because most businesses have one, whether you want one or you just think it's a necessary evil, it is out there working for you 24 hours a day on your behalf. Um, and don't forget your LinkedIn profile, both your corporate about us page and even your personal page, to make sure that that messaging is applied. It'll make a huge difference and help you stand out from the crowd. So I'm hoping that with these examples, the tools that we've shared today can help you, your team, your organization. And if you, or if somebody that you know of would like help getting their messaging right, then let's set up a time to talk. I have a couple of helpful tools available for free. If you're interested, in the meantime, you can go to my website and download the marketing checklist, which is the 5 things that you can use to grow your business. That's the sales funnel items that we've put together based on Donald Miller's Marketing Made Simple book, or our brand worksheet, which are the 10 questions that we use with our customers to kick off and start every project, or just email me and I'd be happy to send them to you. So that's it. Thanks again for having me. I'm going to stop screen sharing and we can open it up for any questions.
Well, Derek, that was great information. I like the simplicity of it, just the 1, 2, 3. But I have to say, I like how you ended your presentation really quickly on a point of controversy. You quote Dr. Seuss. That's a little taboo in this day and age.
Well, my last name is Sussner. Everybody says Sussner, and so it rhymes. There's umlauts, and the guy's quotes still resonate with me.
That's great. I'm just giving you the business. So
For sure.
No, I love it. Love
Look at all those Dr. Seuss books behind Peter right there.
it.
Yeah, I just thought this was going to be diverted his way, but he found a way of getting back at me. So,
Derek, can I ask you a question?
You bet, Martin.
Yes. So,
Good to see you again, by the way.
Good to see you. Elaine says hi. I told her that we would be on today. So it was really funny. First off, Peter and I just were chatting back. I'm actually re-listening to the Storybrand book on audio, and he just is rereading it again. So perfect. I find that, and then obviously, as you know, Miller gives out so much free information. Like JJ's got a webinar tomorrow.
Yep.
But where I'm coming from, what I want to ask is the one-liner, the clarification of the message. If we had a chance to go back, what it looked like, and what he does is you've condensed all these words into that one-liner. And what I find is that you still end up going into websites with way too many words, right? You may have a good landing page where the top of the fold is just what the newspapers want you to do, and then somehow or another somebody gave in to somebody else, and the blah 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 is there. So how do you have an example that you can show us, a basically boiled down kind of website where every page, everything you go to is still clarity?
Great question. If you've read the book, Donald Miller calls that homepage, he calls it the grunt test.
Right.
That at a glance, if you land on somebody's site, you should be able to grunt back to somebody what it is that they do, because it was so clear. And he basically says there's 3 things, there's 3 key things that need to be included, regardless of any of the other fluff, which they suggest you move that somewhere else to the junk drawer. And that area above the fold, it has to tell people what you do. It has to answer that question so that I know that specifically that I'm in the right place. So many, like Turning Point Consulting, who I could open up their new website and show you where they landed, really understood how vague and unclear they were saying what it was that they do with regards to technology. And that's easy to do. Most of us kind of default to that. Or like some of the other examples, they don't show anything at all, and they just assume that you're in the right place. And I think that being able to state clearly and very directly what you do is a challenge, and it can be harder than it sounds, but that's really the goal. Number two is to then say, or to relate how you can help. So saying what you do and how you help somebody is different than stating your claim of expertise and who you help. It's a much more empathetic, engaging, warmer, welcoming, approachable point of entry. And then the third component that they point out that we forget to do is to tell people what you want them to do, to call them to action. If you sell something, that's your buy now button. If it's a service, it's call today, schedule an appointment, but it's the direct call to action. It's not a passive learn more, find out more. It's a very, very direct, specific piece. If somebody lands on your website and you tell them what you do, how you make their life better or solve their problem, and what you want them to do, the rest of the website can be as complicated and overwhelming as you want it to be, as far as I'm concerned, because they've already determined that they're in the right spot. Now, I'm joking a little bit. You don't want to overwhelm them, but when you move to the inside of the About Us page, or to your service overview page, or to your process page, Storybrand will walk through that same similar cadence of the quantity of information to use. But I think we tend to get clever, and we tend to be vague. And I don't know, think about your own shopping experience, or when you get referred to somebody through a networking event and you go check out their LinkedIn page and their LinkedIn profile, beyond just looking at where they've worked, you can look at Rob's LinkedIn profile and understand that there's a money management, wealth management piece of what he does. But what if Rob's statement under About Us, instead of saying, Edward Jones, representative and specialist for X amount of years, what if the first thing Rob's statement said was, I understand that picking a financial advisor to help you manage your money to protect your family's future is overwhelming. I get it. And that's why I get out of bed every day, is to help put people at ease, give them peace of mind, and to know that their money is being put to work in the right place for them. Now, I'm just kind of riffing here, and that's still too many words, but that's a different way of saying, I manage money, I make a lot of money for my clients. Do you want some? Well, sure, but what's different and differentiating about you and the way that you do it? And how can you tell me about your experience in a way that makes me want to call you versus your direct competitor who works across the street?
Yeah.
Derek, this is Sayer Darling. And with so much that has changed in the world since the pandemic, and the emphasis on authenticity, transparency, compassion, yada, 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 and a lot of changes that have occurred in people's customer base, is it a wise idea that everyone take a look at this sentence for themselves in a new light? Doesn't everybody kind of need a redo at this point?
100% yes.
Okay.
I would argue that as I think about the companies that my organization works with, the pandemic's affected every single one of them in some way.
Mhm.
Every one of them. There's actually a couple who, lucky for them, this whole thing has benefited a little bit. For other people, it's caused their target market to change.
Right.
Or for people whose customers haven't changed, what their customers want or need now with
Correct.
respect to their services is different. Their timing's different, their budgets are different. And so I think to be able to, you bring up a great point that I should hire you to help me with my next presentation, because I should have said that right up front, that the words that a lot of us were using a year ago to engage with our customers might not be relevant today based on
Right.
the changes that have happened.
We wore out an entire vocabulary last year, and the new one is not yet invented. And just one follow-up question very quickly. This really applies more to solopreneurs and small companies who have revised their statement time after time as they have evolved to a point where they absolutely get wrapped around the axle. They have no idea, they've exhausted all their language. They don't know what to do next. Do you recommend doing this process at a certain time? Are there certain triggers so people actually make progress in revising their statement rather than rewriting the rewrites of the rewrites?
Well, great question. So a couple thoughts. One is I'm thinking back the first time when I was introduced to Storybrand my business is almost 22 years old, and we discovered Storybrand about 3 or so years ago. And it was the most eye-opening, approachable, actionable business book that I've ever read. All the other books that I've read, think about reading Traction, for example. If you could actually read Traction and put EOS into work for yourselves, you have a much better attention span and ability to put that level of complexity, even though Gino Wickman outlines everything to deal with Traction and EOS, and he gives you all the tools and tells you exactly how to do it. It's a complicated process. And Donald Miller tells you exactly how to do it and gives you the tools to do it. But when you do it for yourself, it can be really hard when you're so close to it to get caught up in your industry language, to get caught up in slang, to get caught up in what hasn't worked or what's worked in the past. And I remember sitting in a conference room with my business partner, I think for an hour a day for 3 days in a row, trying to work on our brand statement when we first read the Storybrand book. And it was one of the most frustrating, banged our head against the wall for 3 days because we're so close to it. And when we came out of it, I think we had improved it, but then I took it to a peer group that I'm in to stress test it. And we still, to have somebody else's perspective, even somebody else's perspective who isn't in your industry, who doesn't know, if you can't say that one-liner to them and for them to get a gist of what you do, then it's probably not quite working. You asked about a trigger event. For me, a trigger event would be a sales call. If somebody called me and said, hey, I was referred to you about your services. I'm interested in how you can help me. Tell me a little bit about Sussner Design Company and what you do. The general reaction of what I would say and how they reacted is a huge trigger point for me. The worst one for me was networking events, walking into a Club E event or a SEGC meeting in person and having to stand up or introduce somebody and stumble over. I think a great test is being able to say it and read it out loud. If you can't say it and verbalize it, if it only works in typed written versions, then it's probably too long and can be tightened up too.
Good, thank you.
So Derek, I'll pick on me as with a question. So in my world, I deal with 2 different audiences, and you get to the same services. But for instance, in my world, on the individual investor, I think, you kind of touched on that's one aspect where there's a lot of confusion, fear, anxiety around, the financial plan for individuals. But on the corporate level, for small businesses, the other thing that I focus on is, actually taking over retirement plans for 401ks, et cetera. So my message might be different because for my business clients that I work with, the big pain point for them is always generally service. They never hear from their rep. They sign up a new plan, and that was 5 years ago. We've never heard from them since. And that's where someone like me can kind of step in and help that client. So at a wholesale level, 100 employees, right, whatever the number is, meeting one-on-one and just being a resource for them versus one-on-one personal investing. So would I have 2 statements that I would do? Or
I'm going to pull one. Yes, great question. So I'm going to pull up an example here that I want to read to you. Give me 1 second here. So I would approach it to first and foremost, come up with your brand statement that's umbrella enough that pulls out the one or the two things that are common to both of those audience. And that's whatever, financial peace of mind. It doesn't have to be overly complex. You don't have to get into retirement. You don't have to get into commercial versus family versus personal. It can be that overall kind of pain point or challenge of feeling confident with who's handling you or helping you with your financial goals. Then I think of it as a messaging tree. Then I would do a subset of a mini brand statement for each audience. Now, if you're talking with somebody in person and you already know which audience they are, then you go straight to that version of it. But on my website, I'm going to start with the broader umbrella version, and then I'm going to drill down into each of them. So for example, one of our clients is Union Bank and Trust in Northeast Minneapolis. And their brand statement reads something like, it can be difficult to find a financial institution you feel confident is dedicated to you or your organization's best interests. When you have the right team behind you, you can dream about wherever you want your financial freedom to take you. So nowhere in that umbrella statement does it talk about the commercial banking, the small business banking, the personal trust, or the institutional trust that they focus on. Those, all four of those are then brief subsets of that message that help you drill in to that specific audience once you've established the umbrella.
Great.
It's like, I think of it as a messaging tree. It doesn't have to be complicated, but if you can start with the big one first, then you have the opportunity to then come in with the support ones.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure. Anything from anyone else?
Yeah, this is Martin again. You know, it's funny, Derek, you used the term umbrella, and that's what I used to use 30 years ago when I was training real estate companies and said, okay, your firm, and it goes for like a financial advisor firm, Edward Jones, whatever, your firm brings a certain umbrella of resources to the table, right? Edina Realty, number one, blah, blah, right? All that kind of stuff. But then how do you, when you're dealing with someone who has that kind of umbrella firm that they've aligned themselves with, then how do you help them differentiate how their brand with under that brand, if you understand where I'm going? And like,
Yep.
you know, it's, you know, I live in a townhome community. I could throw a rock and I could hit 4 other realtors who live across the street. So how do you differentiate, right? And so, I don't know.
So, yeah, good question. I think differentiating is a couple of things. One, differentiating is like truly offering a service or an expertise or an approach or a process that somebody else doesn't also offer. So my one question is, if you've got 4 realtors, are they all truly differentiated? Or as Caldwell and Edina and whoever, are they literally all just doing the exact same thing? If they are doing the exact same thing, then I think you can differentiate your messaging by empathizing with and selling to that emotional aspect of what a customer might find helpful. Think of Chris Lindahl. I'm going to make fun of him. I don't know Chris, and if you've hired him or not, all apologies, I don't know. But the big giant billboards with the arms stretched out, he has, and successfully so, from my impression, positioned himself as the hero in that story, and he's bought and paid for it through the quantity of advertising. That's a different marketing tactic and a different marketing approach. So, you know, the quantity of services that you talk about, it kind of goes back to Rob. We worked with a recruiting company in the Twin Cities, and they recruit for 12 different specific roles and industries. And if you go to their website, it jumps right into all 12 of those. And it's really overwhelming or hard for me to know that if you do 12 things really well, how do I know that you do any one of them like really well? And so the goal that we're working on for them is to get that into an umbrella recruiting messaging so that you know that you're in the right place. And then we're actually looking at presenting those 12 things into 3 silos so that we can have mini messages for each of those 3, so that as we're going through that kind of customer journey or that user experience, that we're continuing to guide them from, yes, you're in the right place. Here's this industry that's common to you. Now we can dig in. And by then now I've spent enough time there that now I'm ready to really make sure that I understand your expertise and your authority and all the reasons why you can help me. My industry, we're classified as a branding agency or a graphic design firm. And in the Twin Cities, I'm probably one of a billion. And so that same challenge of how do we stand out from anybody and everybody else that does the exact same thing or says that they do the same thing we do, how do we do that? And so one of that is by positioning, which is expressing as much of what we do as much as what we don't do. And that brand statement is how we do it. So while my competitors are speaking to the executional tactics of website design or product packaging or trade show booth design, whatever, I'm talking to helping your brand differentiate and stand out from your competition so that you can engage with your customers quicker and more easily so that you can grow your business and we can help provide an impact.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I want to be respectful of folks' time, so we're at 1 o'clock. Derek, thanks so much for sharing your expertise. And if you guys need anything, Derek's always open for a cup of coffee and maybe a round of the golf course. So but I
Any
appreciate
day,
everybody
right?
coming up. What's that?
Should be golfing any day. Maybe not today, but soon. Soon.
So I appreciate everybody's time today. Again, if there's anything we can do for you, reach out, let us know. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Bruce. See you, Sarah.
Hey, Rob.
Hey,
Talk to you soon.
sounds good. See you guys.